You've already gone 2 minutes over. Senator Warner, you're recognized, Senator from Virginia.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would say to my friend from Louisiana, I think your appropriate admonition about only dead fish go with the flow, maybe that could be applied to both sides on our partisan basis too, as senators.
Well, I agree with that. I don't even know what parties they're in.
I understand. I appreciate that. Ms. Raskin, it's good to see you. I do want to note, we all know you've got progressive views, but I've been actually very surprised and pleasantly surprised by the number of Virginia bankers who had experience with you and believe very much that you were a very fair and balanced regulator. And I hope that is reflected in the record as well. And former heads of the independent community bankers and others have come forward on supporting you. And again, I think that bodes well for you. I also a little surprised. my understanding of the Fed's role and responsibility is also to look at systemic risk. And I tell you, in my state, whether we call it Hampton Roads, our tidal regions, Norfolk, Virginia Beach, others, they have huge risks to those economies because of sea level rise. Now, we don't call it climate change because that may not be the politically appropriate terminology, but I sure as heck know the banks, financial institutions, political leadership, Democrat and Republican on both sides in Hampton Roads, views sea level rise as a incredibly significant systemic risk. And I believe it would be, that risk is amplified around. I think my friend, the colleague from Louisiana, they have that same challenges around New Orleans and elsewhere. So I do think as we think about both the questions of full employment, systemic risk, these issues are extraordinarily relevant. I also have to tell you that one of the things I was hoping to raise with you, Senator Reid raised, and you kind of took the answer and ran with it, and that was cyber. Because I find when I talk to bankers, when I sit in my role as Intelligence Committee Chair, cyber is an omnipresent risk, and we should all be alert now. God willing, we're not going to see military action coming out of Russia with Ukraine, but should there be a component part of that will be cyber. And as we saw from the Russian attack against Ukraine and NotPetya, you can't limit a cyber attack to a geographic area. There were literally tens of billions of dollars of losses in America due to the NotPetya attack in 2015. So my hope would be that cyber will continue to be a focus, and you've addressed it pretty well, but I want to know if there was anything else. You've had experience in cyber. Was there anything else? You had a pretty comprehensive answer. And I do want to get one other question in for you and Ms. Cook, if possible, but I want to give you another chance to
Yes, no, I appreciate your underscoring what certainly has been my experience in talking to the financial sector regarding cybersecurity. The threats are actually evolving at a very quick pace. This is a type of warfare, as you might imagine, and the defensiveness of the financial sector, I think, is really at stake here. There's obviously, it's not the role of the Fed, certainly, to stop cyber attacks, but I do think it's important from a supervisory and risk perspective to make sure that the financial sector feels that it has the defensiveness.
Wouldn't a massive cyber attack that could potentially bring down part of our financial system, while there's reporting requirements in the financial system, there's not for the balance of the economy? We've got a bipartisan bill that was going to get into the defense authorization that would at least require some level of mandatory reporting. But a catastrophic cyber attack against our financial sector, wouldn't that be a systemic risk?
Yes, I think it could.
I agree with you. Let me move quickly because I want to make, again, I want to honor the chairman's request to get our questions in, and I'd like you to address, and I know Dr. Jefferson and I talked a little bit about this, but I'd like to get at least you and Dr. Cook on this, and I'll come back to Dr. Jefferson in subsequent questions. CDFIs, MDIs, critically important role. I think you've both played, have experience with them. How do we make sure that the Fed can do more to shore up that critical component of our financial sector? Because clearly lending to low and moderate income individuals has got to be a role if we're going to, again, have both financial stability, economic stability, and close to full employment. Either one of you, please. Dr. Cook, do you want to take that?
Thank you for the question, Senator. I sit on the board of CDFI, and I've learned a lot about it. And I think the Federal Reserve is beginning to engage in discussions about CRA reform. And I think part of that is shoring up the funding for CDFIs. They're critical in terms of getting funding to where capital doesn't go, whether we're talking about urban areas or rural areas. But certainly this is important for entrepreneurship, for the dual mandate, the carrying out of the dual mandate, especially maximum employment. So thank you for your support of CDFI, Senator.
And I think huge opportunities with CRA reform. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks, Senator Warner. Senator Haggerty of Tennessee.